Welcome to ConCensis, a podcast from Censis Technologies.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a podcast brought to you by Censis. I'll be your host for today, Gabrielle, and today I'm joined by Kelly Swales, who's the Clinical Business Manager at Censis, as well as Desiree Acedo, Supervisor at Sterile Processing Department at Centennial Hills Hospital Medical Center. And we're here today to discuss using efficiency task lists to give credit where credit is due. So thank you both for being here. It's going to be a great conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Absolutely. Well, Desiree, we're excited to have you on the podcast today. So could you just, for our audience, introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit about yourself, your role at the hospital?
So again, my name is Desiree. I kind of do everything. I'm a surgical tech by trade, but I'm the supervisor of sterile processing. I sort of coordinate everything between sterile processing and the OR, so I'm more of a liaison. But one of the ways that I do that, of course, is keeping sterile processing running efficiently and making sure that everything is together for upcoming surgeries. So pretty much that sums it up.
Jack of all trades, pretty much.
Pretty much, yeah.
Well, how long have you been using CensiTrac at your facility?
So I've been here about 2.5 years. So that's how long I've been using it. I believe they had it installed maybe a year or two before I started here.
Well, Kelly, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you now. It's great to have you back on the podcast. Could you please just give us a brief introduction and just tell us what you've been up to recently?
Yes, thank you. And thank you for having me. As you stated, I'm the Clinical Business Manager at Censis Technologies. I oversee our Service Plus program. And what that is our customers that have Service Plus. My team and I, we go on site. We do utilization assessments to see how well you are using CensiTrac, LoanerLink, or a scheduler, ScopeTrack Advanced, any of those or all of those. And then with that, we'll do this assessment and then send a trainer on site. So one of our clinical trainers then come on, and the goal of that is to help you maximize your CensiTrac utilization, as well as assist with some compliance, so that when you have Joint Commission, VA inspections, whoever else, Department of Health, whoever comes through your department, to help you be more compliant, as well as having that electronic information. So when they ask for something, you have it right there and you're not having to dig through boxes of paper.
Of course. Well, Kelly, you're going to have the answer to this podcast, which we're talking about efficiency task lists, right? So what is an efficiency task list and just why would a department use it?
Yep. So the way I explain it to customers is think of everything you do in your department that is not in CensiTrac. And that's where most people will use efficiency task list. So for example, you have to clean your sterilizer drains daily in accordance with the IFU. Your washers, you need to inspect the screens or clean the screens and then inspect the spray arms. If you have a task where they do clinic rounds and they have to go pick up dirty stuff or deliver sterilized, all those things that are not per se in CensiTrac, you can put them in as an efficiency task. And it's all free text, so you call it what you want. You can assign a time to it. You don't have to, but you can assign a time. And then when the staff perform that duty, they just scan a barcode to show that it was done.
Well, Desiree, I'm going to turn it over to you again here for a second, because I understand you use EFT at your facility. Where have you seen improvements where you're using EFT?
I mean, for me personally, there's a lot less paperwork to have to keep up with since everything gets sent to my email. I just pull up my emails every morning, go through and fill out a report that I have to submit to my bosses. And it's just an easy transfer, of information from one screen to the next, basically. So it really has streamlined and freed up more of my time to do the other 1,000 tasks that I have to do.
Oh, gosh. Yeah. And freed up your desk of all the extra paperwork, because now it's all in one central area. Well, Kelly, just what are maybe some benefits to using EFT other than, it streamlines the process, sends a lot of the paperwork to your email, so you're not having that physical paper, but maybe just what are some of the more major benefits of using EFT?
Yep. So, as I mentioned, you're scanning that barcode. That when you scan that, that's going to document that task was completed with a date and time stamp and that user. I always feel you get a lot more credibility when you have electronic documentation and reports, because if I was asked, can you show me your eyewash station log? And I say, yep. And I go to get it and I see that someone forgot to record it on Sunday. Well, I could pencil that in quick and cheat. Whereas when it's electronic, you get a lot more credibility because it's a true date and time stamp. And then along with that too is when you're looking at those logs, can you read everyone's handwriting? Along with some of that information that you record, if you look at AMI guidelines, it says name, not initials, on some of those standards and those recommendations that you should be doing. And so it's your full name in there. And then when, as I mentioned, having to get that report. So in less than 30 seconds, I could have that report out of CensiTrack, printed, handing it to whoever needs it, versus having to go dig through boxes of paper. Along with that is just the time it takes to fill out all the information, a lot quicker to just scan a barcode.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that streamlines the process incredibly by just having to scan the barcode itself. And, Desiree, you mentioned paperless documentation, so aside from storage, as I mentioned, how does utilizing EFT compare to paper documentation?
Well, like Kelly mentioned, you had these situations previously where I'd be auditing the records and you'd have all these blank spots, boxes that weren't filled in. Something was missing, either a date, a time, an initial. And then, of course, someone could always go in, which they tended to do, and just write in like, oh, okay, well, it was this date. Let me just initial it. But that's falsifying documents, really. And in our line of work, that's actually very bad because majority of our documentation is considered legal paperwork. And so if you doctor a legal document, well, then you can set yourself up for some real trouble. So doing it through this efficiency task list that we have in CensiTrack now, it really does stop that from happening. And because I get those reports sent to me every morning, I'm able to see right away if something was missed. We're still within our time frame window. And so then I can have, my next shift or my lead person go and complete that one task that was missed, as opposed to not finding it for several days. So it's really good in that regard.
Well, Kelly, anything to add there?
Yeah, as you mentioned, that compliance and making sure things are done. I mean, we are human. We will forget to do things. And that's what I like about using efficiency task and having that emailed report. So I could have it emailed to me every day at 9 a.m. And that's going to show that all my tasks for that morning were done or not done. Well, if I get it at 9 a.m., I can then walk into the department and say, hey, no one completed cleaning the sterilizer drains. How come? And they say, oh, that was Sally's job and she called in sick. And it's like, okay, well, can you do that? Now they go, they scan it, they complete it, and then you've got that 100% compliance. And you can have that emailed to everybody in leadership or the whole team, or you have someone who's responsible for that. So if you're out, someone else is getting those emails and verifying that things are done. And you're still within your day, your time frame, in accordance with like how your SOP is written, so that you have that compliance and everything is completed in there. And then, as you said, no paper. You're saving.
No.
You're saving trees, but when you look at some of those tasks that have to be done, many times I see that eyewash stations in the decontam area. Well, that's dirty paper. And if you're storing dirty paper, if you have to go dig that out years later or months later, anytime, I mean, I feel like you need to have a biohazard suit on or something because of all the germs and the stuff that's in there.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, absolutely. And, Desiree, how did you go about deciding what tasks to use EFT for?
So some of it was based on AMI standards, what they require of us to document every day or monthly or however they designate it. Another thing that we looked at was corporate policy. And then, of course, also the IFU for our different devices, whether it's our sterilizer, our cart washers, all the equipment that we have in the department. There's an instructions for use, and it tells you how often you have to test it, how often you have to clean it. And so all of those things I took into account when building the efficiency task list, and then I separated everything out by those specific groups. So daily, monthly, weekly. It was actually really easy to do.
And Kelly, do you have anything to add there?
Yeah, when you're setting up those tasks, you want to put in there, if you're putting in the time, you want to put in that average time. So for example, if I am going to document how long does it take to go do your clinic rounds and pick up dirty stuff? Well, I'm going to see how long it takes maybe 3 to 5 different people, because you may have Chatty Cathy who talks to everybody along the way. And then you got somebody else who just does their job and they're quiet. So it may take this person 30 minutes to do it, and it could take this person an hour to do it, depending on how social they are. And so it's nice then to get that average. Then you have the option is, do you tell the staff and have it display on the barcode how much time are they given? Or you can have that time in there, but then it's hidden. For example, if I'm given 45 minutes to do my clinic rounds, but I know I can have it done in 30, am I going to be someone who's hiding out somewhere or stopping at the cafeteria for breakfast? So there's all these different things you take into consideration with that. And the key point with putting those times in there is that productivity. Everybody wants credit for the work that they do. And that is showing then, here's where I was in my productivity for 45 minutes or 30 minutes or 5 minutes even.
So Desiree and Kelly, we've talked a little bit about time and we're venturing into productivity. Just what about the tasks that are pre-built into CensiTrack?
So the tasks that are pre-built in, what comes to mind for me is like the testing of the sterilizers. Is that what you're referring to?
Yes.
Well, so what, actually, if I can interrupt here, what that is actually ones that are pre-built in. So if you're looking at efficiency tasks, there's going to be ones that are pre-built in. You can add time to them, but you can't edit that. And so that is, for example, how long does it take to process a container in the decontam module? How long does it take to build a case cart in the case cart module? And so when you're coming up with those times again, you almost have to be in there with with a stopwatch. So so if I go and I scan this container, comes in a decontam, I want to start my stopwatch the minute I go to scan it, touch it, do anything. I bring it to the sink, I do whatever I need to do, and then maybe I let it soak in the sink for a little bit. The minute I walk away, turn around from that sink, that time would stop. I go do other things. I come back. When I come back, then I'm going to rinse it, maybe carry it over to the ultrasonic. That time is going again. So it's kind of a start and stop to where you get a true time in there. And then I would do it for multiple containers, multiple people to get that average.
And Desiree?
So the pre-built ones, now that Kelly clarified that for me, so we are actually not utilizing the pre-built ones as of right now. We just kind of went in and customized all of our own. One of the things that we're not doing here yet is building case carts. We are going to start transitioning to that area here, hopefully pretty soon. But as of yet, we're not doing that. And another feature, which I'm glad she mentioned this, is adding the time to each one of those tasks. So currently we just have the minimum time assigned to it because you do have to assign some kind of time. But we haven't really changed that. Hopefully Kelly or someone can teach us how to utilize that, because that is something that I would love to start using at some point.
Desiree, what about compliance? Are staff receptive to using EFT?
Our staff is very receptive. And again, for a couple of different reasons. One being they don't have to keep track of all the different logbooks in writing everything and then remembering, oh, did I do it? Did I miss it? Or again, falsifying, because like myself, I do have a couple of staff members that are very aware of the implications that come with falsifying. So when we started transitioning to that, they were more than happy to start learning how to do it. Some of the bumps in the road, of course, were, remembering to sign off, like after you scan, you have to scan your badge. So there was a little bit of that along the way, but for the most part, I had no resistance from anyone on doing that.
And Kelly, what are your thoughts? Are staff overall receptive to using EFT?
Yeah, you always have those that are resistant to change and like, what? Why are we doing this? We've always done it on paper. Mm-hmm. But once they see the benefits of it, see how quick it is, get past that little learning curve, which isn't much. It's just, hey, scan this barcode instead of writing down.
Exactly.
I always feel I see 100% buy-in because everybody wants to be more efficient. Everybody, kind of the easy way out, the easiest way to do this. And scanning a barcode is your easiest way to do it.
Well, as we start to close up the conversation for today, both Desiree and Kelly, is there just anything else that we need to share about EFT? What are your thoughts there?
So one thing is I look at really, I recommend leadership, talk to your staff. What are you guys doing on a daily basis, a weekly basis? Maybe it's weekends only. That's not in CensiTrack. That is one of our tasks or our duties. And maybe it's not even one of the tasks or the duties, but it's something that we all just do. So if I have to go down and get more blue wrap, if it's a walk all the way down to materials management and back, that could be half an hour. Well, that half hour a day, maybe sometimes it's 2 people, depending on how busy you are. I mean, that adds up. So really drill down, come up with those tasks. And then with that, figure out those times, because you would be shocked at what is going on that is not being recorded. So for example, I worked at a hospital. I had staff. 2 of them went and did clinic rounds 3 times a day. Well, when I looked to see how much time that takes and then added it all up, I was take in the 2 15-minute breaks, the half-hour lunch. That's 7.5 hours a day. That is almost a full FTE. We are half an hour short per day of a full FTE. So when I look at my productivity and I'm saying, I need more staff, and they're saying, well, here's what you're doing and here's how many staff you have. Well, we had basically one whole position that was not being recorded, documented, anything. And when you look at the whole staffing concerns with sterile processing, what a great way to start looking and having that in there to show, hey, we are busy. Or even if they say, well, your staff are only working at 40% productivity. Here we require that everybody's at least 60% before we'll even discuss staffing. Well, they are at probably 60. It's just that a lot of the stuff is not being recorded in CensiTrack. And I can talk about it. I can say, well, we do clinic rounds and we check eyewash stations and that. But me talking about it versus it being right there in a hard document, black and white, that's going to speak a lot more.
I agree 100%. I mean, having that justification when you are talking to the higher ups about how many staff members you need, because there are those things that they don't take into account. Another example is when someone's assembling an instrument set, sometimes it could take them 20 or 30 minutes to find instruments that are missing or need to be replaced in a tray. So that's 20 or 30 minutes that are lost or unaccounted for, I should say, that I feel should count towards our productivity, but currently it doesn't. So having that hard documentation with these specific times on how long everything is taking could maybe help us as managers go in and get the higher ups to justify changing their formula of how they calculate our productivity for us.
Kelly, do you want to add on
there?
Well,
I'll say, and Desiree, I just learned something from you. It made me think of something that you're correct. If you have a missing instrument from your set, you're going to go look at your backup stock. Yeah. And that could be quick and easy. It's right there. I find it. No big deal. Nothing to scan. Less than a minute it took me. But what about when you can't find it in that backup stock? Mm-hmm. So now I go check all the baskets that came out with that whole load, or I look over in the peel pack area. Can't find it. So I peek my head in a decontam through the pass-through window and say, hey, I'm missing this instrument. Do you have it back there? Have you seen it? Nope. Now I run up to the OR. I'm checking the dirty utility room because maybe when they turned the room over, they found it. Nope, can't find it. And I come back. That can be anywhere from, just 5 minutes to maybe 30 minutes, depending on where you're located or how many dirty utility rooms do you have to check because you don't know which one it came from. And so what a great thing is to have, kind of an instrument search or missing, something like worded to say, looking for missing instrument. And you give them a 10-minute scan, and then you give a 5-minute scan. And if it took me 15 minutes, then I would scan the 10 and the 5. And then you could compare that to say, okay, when they scan this, let's go look at the container that they assembled. Yes, this container took longer, and it did have a missing instrument. So it's not just someone scanning something to get credit. You can always verify that. I like that. So I will use that now when I'm doing assessments with customers and say, hey, I have a good idea for you. Because all that time adds up.
It does.
Well, that rounds up the conversation for today. So a big thank you to Kelly and Desiree for joining me on today's podcast to discuss using efficiency task lists so we can give credit where credit is due. It was a pleasure to have you on today.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Of course. And as always, if you want to learn more, please visit census.com and look for this podcast wherever it is you get your podcasts at. Thanks for tuning in.